All right, Yumana, all yours.
Awesome. Thank you, Ray and Musleh, for fixing this real quickly. And thank you, John, for joining us, and everyone, of course. I'm not going to take much of you guys' time because we already spent a lot of time trying to fix things. So I'll just go ahead and welcome everyone. And well, first of all, thank you for being here. When we put this masterclass together alongside DJ Penn, Ray, and Mustah, of course, and the team, we really wanted to put something together that supports our alumni in taking that step towards their career, whether if it's advancement or prepping or whatever your personal goals are. At the end of the session, we will be at the end of every session, we'll be announcing an assignment. Whoever submits all of their assignments will be considered for an opportunity later on for a possible one-on-one consultation. And we will communicate with you more information about that closer. The people who also attend all the sessions will get an opportunity to do so. So yeah, thank you for being here. Try to make the best out of it. John is absolutely amazing. I will tell you more about him. And later in this session, we will be joined by three speakers who actually are online with us now. Hamza Bahamdan, Salih Nawar, and Maha Mohammed. They will be speaking about their own experiences. We'll keep that for later, but for now, allow me to introduce John. I will read from my notes a small bio on who John is and his achievements. John Richardson is the co-founder and director of Level Up, an international partner to the immersive technology and games industry, with nearly 20 years of global recruitment experience, over a decade of which he has spent in the UAE. He specializes in connecting gaming studios and technology companies with hard-to-find talent. He's also co-founder of Discovered, an award-winning talent solution provider recognized by LinkedIn in 2025 as a top 25% global recruitment company. Over the course of his career, John has helped studios and digital businesses secure the people who power innovation and growth. Through Level Up, he partners with leading game makers and publishers worldwide, providing solutions and insights to help attract the very best talent in engineering, design, and creative minds. That's you guys. Alrighty, John. Without further ado, please, the floor is all yours.
Thank you very much, Jemana, and I'd have made that shorter if I knew you were going to read that out for everybody. So, no, thank you very much for having me this evening. It's a huge pleasure, and just evening to everyone, and it's great to see so many people sort of joining on this call. As mentioned, name's John Richardson. I am one of the co-founders of Level Up. I've spent close to 20 years in recruitment now, with the last sort of 11 years, I would say, being here in the UAE. But over the last few years, I've spent a lot of time dedicating myself towards the upcoming sort of Saudi gaming market. And obviously, I'm keen to sort of continue that over the sort of the coming years and the studios that you guys are going to end up empowering. Now, the reason for the session tonight is through that experience I've had more recently in gaming, but over the years just in digital and tech. I want to talk to you tonight about the reality of that. The reality is that recruiters and hiring managers don't spend hours studying your CV or your portfolio. You often get seconds to decide whether or not to keep reading and moving on. So tonight, I kind of wanted to show you how to create what I call sort of a minimum viable CV and portfolio, and something that will cut through the noise and hopefully get you some interviews as you go on your sort of employment journey. So hopefully by the end of this evening's session, I'll help you to know what makes a CV and portfolio stand out, what often gets overlooked, what the most common pitfalls are to avoid, and hopefully leave you with a checklist so that you can use this every single time you apply for a new role. So I want to start with what makes a CV and portfolio stand out. Now, the number one thing recruiters look for is what you actually did. Now, in the games industry, if someone says, I worked on Assassin's Creed, generally to most people, that's great. But what did you do when you worked on it? Was it the button design? Was it the combat mechanics? Was it the stamina system. Hiring managers and recruiters want to see your fingerprints on the work that you do. And this applies across the board. So whether it be a CV, you need to keep this precise. You need to keep it 1-2 pages. You need it to be clean. You need it to be skimmable. You need to focus on achievements, not responsibilities. And this will be one of the biggest things that I will try and get across to you guys today. And is that when it comes to your CV, the tangible information on what you've delivered is far more important than the titles or the projects that you may have been a part of. Now, it's great that you've been on these projects, but what did you actually do in those roles? And that's what recruiters such as myself and hiring managers will be looking for. Now, when it comes to your portfolio, you want to put your best work only. Don't treat your portfolio like a dumping ground. If you just upload every piece of work that you've done, let's say you're an artist and you're just constantly uploading art, you want your best work to be seen, because if someone's going to quickly jump onto your art station or your portfolio to check it out, you want your best work to be the one thing that they see and not them have to go sieving through lots of different pieces of art in order to find what you consider the best bit that you've done. So looking at this from a sort of a role specific example, developers have a personal website, have something to show what you've built and how it works. Again, if it's on your CV and it's mentioned, back it up, because if something catches the eye on the CV, I will want to see what it looks like. What did you do and how does it function? Artists have an updated art station. And here's the key. Every software that you've used on that art, list it and make sure you're tagging it. And I sort of say this to anyone that I'm talking to, tag, tag, and tag. Now, I have a real life example on this that I was once working with Warner Brothers in the United Kingdom, and they wanted a Lego specific artist. Now, this is really niche. If you're an artist and typically worked on Lego, there's a good chance you will have worked for Warner Brothers on one of the Lego game franchises. Now, I managed to identify someone through ArtStation who wasn't even working in the games industry and had just built Lego as a pet project. Now, the reason I was able to find him is because he was tagging Lego in his work and he tagged all the software tools that the studio needed. Now, he ended up getting an interview and he actually ended up getting the job, and that was his transition into the games industry. Now, that to me highlights the power of why you should be showcasing your personal project work, but also making sure that you have tagged it efficiently so someone like myself or a hiring manager with an internal studio are able to find you. Designers, showcase studies with process and results. So what was the problem? How did you solve it? What happened as a result? Again, tangible information that's going to make the recruiter or the hiring manager look further into your background and really start to see if you are a good fit for the role that they're hiring for. Now, if you're a beginner, just coming out of uni or haven't got your foot on the employment ladder just yet, there's no problem with that. If you don't have those pro credits, you need to show polished personal projects, game jams, modifications. Really spend your spare time whilst you're looking for employment, upskilling yourself, playing around, just working on something that you are able to showcase what you're able to do. This is vitally important. It's very hard to get employed without something to showcase what you can do, whether it be what you've completed during your uni projects or your courses that you've been doing. Showcase that work and let either myself, the recruiters, or the hiring managers see what it is that you're able to do. Now, a few more key rules for portfolios is specialise. For me, don't try to be everything. If you're a character artist, 80 to 90% of your portfolio should be character work. It's fine to have 10 to 20% showing the flexibility. However, anything more than that will muddy the water and make you look somewhat indecisive, or make you look like you're not dedicated to that specific art niche or whatever it might be, whether you want to go into a certain area of game development. Try and tailor yourself so that you are not considered a generalist and that you are considered somewhat a specialist in that area, because it will help you be identified and pulled out from within the crowd. And again, stay consistent. If you want to work on a World of Warcraft style game, your portfolio should look like it belongs in that world. If it's half stylized, half photorealistic, it can be confusing. studios want to open your portfolio and instantly think, yes, this person fits our style. So make sure that your work is consistent with the direction that you want to move in. Now, ultimately, it can be difficult at an early stage to see what direction you want to move into, but this is just something to consider that down the line, you will need to probably specialize in something. So there's no harm from an early part of your career really trying to hone in on that area and making sure that your work is dedicated to that particular area of development, design, or art. Now, if you're an intern or an apprentice, or you've done an internship, sorry, or an apprenticeship, don't downplay it. Like this is, if you've had a short placement, list it. Don't stop at intern at Ubisoft or intern at X Studio. Tell the reader, tell me what it is that you did. So, for instance, a bad example of that would be I was an intern at Riot Games. Okay, that's good that you had that internship, but what is it that you actually did? A good example of that might be I was an intern at Riot Games. I designed and tested UI flows for 2 Valorant features. And by doing so, providing that feedback reduced the QA errors by 10 to 20%. This is tangible information that a hiring manager or recruiter can go, okay, this person added value in that role, and therefore will engage further into that person's CV or portfolio. Every small contribution that you make matters. If they show your skills and they show initiative, they should be on your CV and they should be listed clearly for the reader to be able to take it on. Okay. Now, I want to move on to kind of what gets overlooked. So I kind of want to flip it around to the other side here. There are things that candidates often overlook, and they can somewhat sink into an application. So the first thing I would say is people that don't have an online presence. If you're a developer, I would advise getting a website or building a website for yourself that showcases the projects, everything that you've worked on ultimately. And if you're an artist, it's inevitable. You have to have an art station. Don't allow it to have outdated information. If your last profile or website or art station was updated 6 months, 12 months, 18 months ago, it looks like your career's gone on pause and therefore can be easily overlooked. So make sure that you are constantly updating your portfolio and your CV so that it is primed and ready to go. Now, if you have any links on your CV that links you to that art station or links you to that website, make sure it works. If I click a link and it goes through to a broken link, there's a good chance I'm not going to scramble around looking for more links or maybe even going back to that. That could be your one shot to get noticed by a recruiter or by a hiring manager. So you want to make sure that that is working. Test it again. Like I said, tag, tag, and tag. It's almost a test, test, and test in this situation. Now, make sure there's context. Beautiful art or really good code with no explanation of your role or purpose will just be overlooked. You really need to give detail and explanation of what it is and why it's there for someone to understand it. And then last but not least, misalignment. If your CV, your portfolio, and your LinkedIn all says something different and they don't match up in dates, durations, projects, it's very easy for the reader to look beyond that and overlook you based on what they've seen because it's misaligned. So just make sure that you are on top of everything that you're putting into your CV and your portfolio, making sure it's accurate, it's timely, dates are correct, punctuation's correct, and there's all the detail you need. Because when you are submitting your CV to a hiring manager or a recruiter, you've really got that first initial impression and you need to make it count. And by doing all of these things, it's definitely going to help you in that sense. Now, I'm not sure how this was going to work. I was going to kind of ask if everyone here has got a personal website or an art station and sort of see if that was a thing. I don't know if we can do hands up or not in this chat, for instance, and just make sure that so everyone has this. And if so, are they updating it regularly? Like, is this something that people are really sort of taking pride in and making sure that they are sort of doing this to avoid not being represented in the best light possible? Because at the end of the day, when you send your CV, you are representing yourself. And the only person that can do that in this situation is you as well. So, but we can get onto this when we do the questions later, but I'd like to think that you are all maintaining this. Now, I want to move on to some common pitfalls that you should all be trying to avoid. And these are mistakes that we see very, very often. The first thing is overloading. Now, your CV I mentioned earlier should ideally be 1 to 2 pages. Don't overload your CV. Don't allow your CV to be 3, 4, 5 pages long. Don't allow it to mention every single project that you've done. More is not always better, but actually the best things that you've done should be what's in that project, and that's in that portfolio or in that CV. So if it's too long-winded and too overloaded, then it could be that it will be looked past. Again, don't undersell yourselves. Listing duties without achievements. So, for instance, don't say I was responsible for environment design. That's great that you were, but let's talk about modular environment assets. Let's talk about where they were used. Did it improve production time? So, as you go through your career, these are all things that you should be looking to constantly evolve into your CV and into your portfolio, because it might just not help you get your first job, but it could definitely maybe help you get your second or your third or your fourth as your career evolves. Now, again, this is another one, over designing or under designing your CV. Now, CVs that look great but are unreadable, and CVs that don't look great and are just loads of text, both of them are bad. You need to find a happy medium in your CV that allows it to showcase you for what you are and not just have a load of information, or a CV that looks fantastic but the information's really lacking. Now, your CV doesn't need to have a picture of yourself on there. It needs to have the information on there, whether that be your name, your address, your email address, your portfolio link, your phone number, your education, the list of your projects, everything that needs to be there, for you to be seen. Now, don't just put information on there that is irrelevant. That's why I mentioned about we don't really need a photo on your CV. If you're a really good looking person, you might want it on there. However, it's not a necessity for the hiring manager or the recruiter to actually choose you for this role based on that. They're looking for your skill set. What have you done? What tools have you worked with? Again, one of the common pitfalls I see quite often is people not listing all their software in each role. So if you are working with Maya, or you are working with Houdini or Blender or ZBrush for any particular projects, make sure that they're listed. A lot of recruiters, and if I'm headhunting and I'm headhunting for specific skills, if they're not listed on your CV, I could overlook you. And I wouldn't want to do that if you've actually been working with that technology set. So make sure that all your skills are listed. Again, a grading system in your skills can be very useful. So if you are a developer and you do have experience with Unreal Engine and you also have experience with Unity, but yet you feel that you're stronger with one or the other, be honest. Mention that my Unity skills, I would say, is a solid 8 out of 10. And with Unreal Engine, I have some exposure and I'm probably a 5, maybe a 6 out of 10. There's no harm in doing that, because the recruiter's not going to contact you for an Unreal Engine role, which, to be fair, you probably aren't the strongest candidate for. However, you've highlighted that Unity is your strong skill set, and therefore the recruiter will make the move when it comes to Unity. So just make sure that you are providing the right context and the right information in order to not waste somebody's time, but also to waste your time. You wouldn't want to go through a process where there's a good chance you may not be the strongest candidate for it, or your skill set may not be strong enough to actually be able to complete that role if you were to even be successful. The next thing is dead portfolios. And again, you're all kind of starting out on your journey now. I see it a lot. A lot of people that have been in the industry for several years will have built a portfolio when they first started and then forgot about it. It's almost just fallen to the wayside. It's in a portfolio graveyard somewhere. And ultimately, when I go to check it out and it's no work being completed for the last 4 or 5 years, it's pointless me looking at that portfolio. So again, make sure that your portfolio from day one is maintained and updated as you go through your career, and it will put you in the best stead at any point in your career, because if anybody reaches out and says, I've got a job that I think you'd be really good for, you can immediately share that portfolio with them. So don't allow it to fall to the wayside. Again, with portfolios, the key thing that I say is barriers. Whether it be a very heavy PDF file that you're going to struggle to get into someone's inbox, whether it's password protection on that portfolio, awkward navigation. If it's hard for me or a hiring manager to access your portfolio, there's a good chance they may not bother. And therefore, by having those blockers and those barriers in place, you might be doing yourself an injustice. So if it is a password protection on that portfolio, maybe mention that in your CV. Here's my portfolio link and the password is X, Y, and Z. That would be the best way to do it if you do want to password protect it. If you're not precious around having it protected, then don't put a password on it and just share it out via a link so that people can see the work that you're doing. This one's probably more for artists, is when it comes to portfolios, don't lead with a video. Now, when you have your portfolio, a lot of people try and do it where when you first go onto the portfolio, there'll be a sort of a fly through video at the start. Videos sometimes don't load. And if a recruiter has only got a period of time to look through your CV and your portfolio, and I'm sat on a screen where there's a little circle going round and the video's not loading, I may move on. Now, we're having really bad internet issues here at the moment in the UAE because of the cables. So that would be a prime example that a video might not load and I may just move on to something else. Now, the best thing for you to do is lead with a very strong static screenshot and add videos later into the portfolio. So almost rewarding the reader for continually going through your portfolio to then have the videos that they can see your work. But best not to lead with them just because of unstable internet or loading issues. It could be at a disadvantage for you. So if I have let's just say I have a CV and portfolio in front of me, the questions that to ask yourselves is, can I scan it in 30 seconds? Can I see exactly what it is that you did? And can I click straight through to live work and examples? If not, then there's a good chance you may lose me or you may lose the hiring manager. So realistically, you have that 30-second window to get attention, showcase your work, and ultimately tell them exactly what it is that you did. So these are three things to think about when you're putting together your CV and portfolio is, if I only have this short window of opportunity, can I grab the attention with that timing? So then I kind of wanted to move on to a topic around sort of honing your skills. Now, it's vitally important as you continue on your careers to not stand still. Now, one of the biggest things that separates, I would say, average candidates and the ones that stand out is that the ones that stand out never stop honing in their skills. So, for instance, if you're an artist, create custom art in the style of your favorite game. Experiment it with different engines or styles and post it to your ArtStation. If you're a developer, why not mod an existing game? Build something small in Unity or Unreal Engine. Share it on your portfolio. Share it on a GitHub, for instance. And designers, deconstruct a mechanic from an existing game, rebuild it, write about it. So I think why does this matter? Because it proves two things. You're actively improving, not just standing still, and you're passionate about the craft, not just waiting for a studio to give you somewhere to practice. So obviously, when you've come out your education and you're looking for that first opportunity to gain commercial experience, in the meantime, it should be that time to really sort of practice, upskill, take online courses, mod, play around with different art styles. This is what's going to set you apart from everyone else that's maybe not doing that. So this industry is highly competitive. It's very difficult to get the initial break into the industry. I see it a lot when I speak to candidates from all over the world, not just in this part of the region. I think there's big game development universities across sort of Spain, across the UK, across sort of North America, where people are coming out of those unis with the degrees, with the experience from qualifying. However, that first big break is what is going to be the hardest thing for them to achieve. And for them to actually be noticed is taking the time to do personal projects, a little bit of sort of independent development and seeing what they can come up with. And it can help them to be found and to actually get that big break that they're looking for. Now, a lot of studios nowadays are somewhat moving away from the world of AAA as it's labeled, and are actually more interested in more independent developers or independent professionals The reason being is that independents are actually more skilled in an array of technologies, an array of areas, whereas someone who's been within a larger studio can somewhat be stagnant from being stuck on a certain area or only working on a certain piece of this game for 5-6 years maybe in a cycle. So therefore, use this time to really sort of upskill yourself and make yourself stand out in this space. Studios do notice it. They'd rather someone who's constantly been creating and experimenting than someone with just a static portfolio that's relatively untouched. So even without the professional credits, by creating, modding, building, and posting, every project that you do really does sharpen your skills. It gives recruiters like me something new to see. So I would really sort of, I can't explain it enough to ultimately say, make sure that you are just constantly evolving, developing, and trying to make sure you're the best version of you possibly can. So then when it comes down to sort of having a recruiter checklist, before you send anything out, here's a bit of a checklist that I would say to run through. And if you can tick all these boxes, you should be in a pretty good position to be able to send this CV out and get it out to recruiters and out to hiring managers. So is it clear who I am and what the role is that I want? Can someone understand my contribution within, I don't know, 10, 15 seconds? Does it show measurable results, not just responsibilities? Do I have an updated and accessible online presence? And have I cut out the noise and kept only the best? These are the 5 things that I would advise you to run through before applying for a role to make sure that if you've ticked all of these off, you're going to put yourself in the best possible position to be noticed by a recruiter or by a hiring manager or by an internal talent acquisition that could potentially get you that invite to the interview that you're ultimately looking for. So some examples around this would be clarity. Avoid a 200-word introduction. Start with a very sharp one-liner about who you are, what you do, and what it is that you're looking to do. Again, contribution. Don't just say you've worked on something. Name that mechanic, that system, the art that you owned from it. And results. Did it save time? Did it ship? Did it improve performance? Numbers really help. Again, online presence. A recruiter can't sell you internally if there's no proof. So this is more so if you're applying to a role directly through a studio, the internal talent acquisition gets that profile come through. If there's no proof of what you've done and how you've done it, it becomes very difficult for him to sell that to the hiring manager, whether that be the art director, whether it be the technical director, lead developer, whatever it might be. And then lastly, cutting the noise. A focused, high quality portfolio beats a filing cabinet of everything you've ever done. So like I mentioned earlier, pick the best work that you are most proud of and put that in your portfolio. Start with the best thing that you've done and work your way backwards. Again, when time's not your friend always in this situation, you wouldn't have an appetizer, then the main course. You'd start straight with the main course. And if there's room for dessert afterwards, then great. But always start with the main course when it comes to your portfolio. So just to kind of sort of re-summarize on some of this, a minimum sort of viable CV and portfolio doesn't mean basic. And you will hear a lot of people just say, oh, your CV should just be 1 page. I don't agree with that. I think it should be minimal, but it means to be focused. And that's why it should be shorter. It should be shorter because you have dedicated it to the right information rather than just putting all the information on there. Show your contributions, not just the projects you've been a part of. So even if it's a very small contribution and you're proud of it and it adds value to you and your application, be sure to list it. Specialize in your craft and stay consistent in style. And always lead with your strongest work, like I was just saying before. Keep honing those skills and prove that you are active and improving. Don't just stand still. You cannot stand still in this industry. It's too competitive, and therefore you always need to be putting one step in front of the other. And make sure that your work is accessible, updated, and easy to find. Again, if I can't get onto your links and I can't get onto your portfolio, you may lose me, and therefore you're going to lose an opportunity. And we as recruiters, whether we're agency such as myself or whether we're internal, we don't like to see people losing opportunity. So make sure that that's not happening to you, because it's in your own power to make sure that. Now, if you can do all of this, you'll already be ahead of most of the candidates that I see on a daily and weekly basis, because I don't unfortunately get the opportunity to give them all this advice that I'm trying to give to you today. But this would be my advice for you, is to try and stick to what I've explained today, and hopefully through that, and maybe some of the information and nuggets of wisdom that you're going to get from Maha, Hamza and Salah after this, hopefully that will set you guys up to be able to go out and secure those interviews and get yourself into the career that you've all been hoping for and all been studying for as well. And hopefully that's enough information from me now, and I know that we're looking to move over onto a bit of a Q&A, so some of you guys can ask some questions as well.
Yeah, I think that's great. Thank you so much, John. That's a lot of information.
It is, I know, apologies.
No, that's great. And we're recording it, so everyone will be able to go back and they can, maybe parse that out a bit more. Just to say, if any of you have any questions right now, go ahead and put it in chat. I don't see any questions yet. But maybe while we're waiting, I thought I can, Jumana, maybe we can do Q&A for about 10 minutes? Are we going? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So just to kind of kick things off, I know that you're based in Dubai. I know you've been in the region for quite some time. What are you seeing right now in terms of opportunities? Again, as you noted, a lot of these guys are new. They're stepping into it for the first time. So, what are you seeing in terms of opportunities? Is it one area that's seeing more jobs? Is it more programmers? Is there demand for artists? Are there specific areas that you see a gap where these guys might be able to fill? And I know this is a few things, but they're all related. Are you seeing more full-time opportunities, or do you see a strong shift more towards contracting? So what are you seeing in the region, opportunities, and sort of what does the job market look like for somebody who's stepping in for the first time?
Yeah, I think there's equal opportunities across probably programming and art is probably where I see the biggest sort of demands or needs for within this region right now. I think my advice would be to really sort of reach out to, if you're just getting into the industry now, reaching out to the major studios and asking for an opportunity, whether that be an internship or whether that be sort of an apprenticeship or even just some work experience, to ultimately be able to go in, spend a month, spend a few weeks, do some shadowing, do some learning. I think if you can get that exposure and opportunity, and not all the major studios or the larger studios in the region are able to do that, but I think by taking that initiative and actually reaching out, showcasing what your experience is through what I've explained so far, and say, look, I'm looking for an opportunity to just come in and see the workings of a real life studio and gain some knowledge and some experience. I think that would be a great way to set yourself apart from others, to gain some real life experience by doing that, which then will make you more hireable down the line. Now, other opportunities I would look at if I was working in this space right now is, obviously the games market is growing, but it's going to take a little bit more time to grow to the point where there's enough jobs for everybody, but is looking beyond traditional gaming. I think that the skills within gaming are very transferable, especially when you look at digital experiences, when you look at immersive experiences and stuff around sort of virtual reality, mixed reality and sort of augmented reality. These skill sets are very transferable into these industries. And I feel that there could be an opportunity for those that are, let's say, working with Unity as an example, within sort of programming, to maybe transfer some of that experience across into those areas and gain experience by doing that also. So I think it is a case of, while everyone wants to work in predominantly traditional gaming, because that's the passion and that's the love, and I totally agree with that, is almost looking for, how do I get my hands on some real life work experience? And it may be a case of looking beyond that and looking at the other industries that fall very well aligned with the technologies that you are learning with from a gaming perspective. We see it quite a lot. We do a lot of work in the immersive space, and the hires that they make are Unity programmers, 3D artists, technical artists. So the skill sets for those individuals are exactly the same. So there's opportunities to take the experience that you're learning right now and maybe transfer them into a different area to gain real life experience, which is only going to make you more valuable to a studio, publisher, or another business further down the line. Okay, I can see a question come through here, so let me take a look at this. So
Yeah.
Lena, so I graduated just recently with a degree in computer science, AI track. I decided to pursue a career in the GAE dev field only recently. From what you've described, I gather I can't land a job in the game studio until I've worked on myself and built my portfolio. I've been working experience and I'm not completely a clean slate, but they're all corporate or BBI, and most of my projects I worked on throughout university or for Apple web development. Now, I think that, Lena, what I would advise on that is to ultimately, you can still work within a game studio with the skill set and the education that you have, but it would help to have some personal projects to support your experience and your skill set and what you're able to do. I think without that, you may get overlooked because you haven't, if you're up against somebody that's got projects that showcase them working on building games or building sort of a gaming component, I feel that you would only be doing yourself an injustice if you didn't have that. So my advice would be to, in your downtime over the weekends or something, just play around with a bit of building, and it will only help you sort of trying to get into that game studio and gain that experience. Perfect. Then I've got Abdul Rahman. So I have an amazing experience in both game design and development. How can I approach saying that in my CV? It doesn't sound like I'm just dividing myself, even though my experience in both, I would say, is a good 7 to 10 point. Now, that's a very good question. I see that a lot where we get people applying for roles that are, they do come out and say, I'm a designer and a developer. Now, you can be both. And if you are very evenly spread, I think it is just a case of that opening line on your CV is where you really sort of explain that to the reader. It's almost a case of I am a developer in sense, and I am a designer because of this reason. I feel that you need to probably explain that from the off so that it's not misinterpreted, because sometimes you can look at that and think this person's a jack of all trade and a master of none. So I feel that I would explain that in the opening paragraph of your CV, is explain why that experience comes from and why you're able to do both. And then in the projects and the roles that you've had, clearly define what your role has been, because you may have some experience doing game design and you may have some experience doing game development. And as long as you can clearly identify and differentiate between the two, then the reader should be able to take that on board. And then I got the door. So my background is mainly technical. Most of my experience is as a programmer, but I also have experience in design and 3D modeling using NEOM. Should I focus my CV and portfolio only on my technical side, or is it okay to include my design and 3D art skills too? What's the best way to present both? I feel that if most of your experience is programming, I would weight your CV towards that. However, do emphasize your art experience, because there could be an opportunity down the line where you could maybe move into something like technical art, where you work very close with the programmers and ultimately help build the tools for their artists, etc. So I feel that there is almost a direction that you could move into with that. So I would be sure to list your experience. And as I mentioned, when you talk about the software and the technologies and the tools that you work with and have worked with, list them all. Make sure that you don't leave any off. Self-grading, I think, is a great way to actually show the reader that you're taking this seriously, and therefore you're not trying to just pull the wool over someone's eye and say, I'm a 10 out of 10 on everything. I think it is a case of you can run through the tools, the software, and give a a true representation of how good you are with them in your opinion. And that way is clear to say, look, I'm predominantly a programmer, however, I have got some good art skills, and this is what they would be. Mohammed, what about ATS tools for resume HR checkers? Very good question. I feel that it's a kind of a taboo topic, is the ATS tools. Now, again, a lot of different companies use different ATSs. Historically, Microsoft Word CVs will always go through an ATS better. However, more modern ATSs don't tend to judge the CV in as many ways. I'm not a big fan of blanding a CV. If you're a game programmer or an artist, you are in the creative industry. Therefore, your CV should be creative, in my opinion. I feel if you just put together a very basic Microsoft Word CV, but you're a game artist, you're doing yourself absolutely no justice. And therefore, my advice would be is to make the CV aesthetically pleasing, but with all the right information, and hope that that information makes it to the end reader, because you shouldn't water down your CV for an ATS, and most modern ATSs should accept your CV in any format that you send it. So I know from my experience, we don't use an ATS for all the screening that we do. We go through all the CVs that come through us and check them. So therefore, I want to see creative CVs. I don't want to see a bland CV land in my inbox that's been formatted to make it through an ATS. So my advice is to make it a CV that you're pleased and proud to present to a potential hiring manager. Then I've got Mariam. So I have many skills in game development, virtual reality experience, and environment design, but the job market there isn't a clear title for level design. I feel like my CV looks too diverse, so they may not see me as specialized in one area. Could this make them ignore my CV? Again, it's very hard when you are multi-skilled in a way. Ultimately, there's ways that you could do this. If you are applying for individual roles, you could in this sense potentially make a couple of CVs where one is dedicated more towards game and one is more dedicated towards virtual reality, so that you aren't being overlooked for either or. Level design is an area which is quite big outside of the region. I don't see too much demand for it right now. However, I do feel that it will be something in the next sort of year or two that we will see more level design opportunities enter in this particular region. So I feel that if you keep moving in the direction that you are, hopefully that will become an opportunity for you. But it might be worth ultimately tailoring your CVs for the roles that you're applying for, whether that be more game development heavy or more virtual reality destined as well, shall we say.
Okay.
Raymond, you can give me a shout
great.
when we're out of time, but are we all good?
I think that's perfect. Pretty good. Let me see. There was, I see, one question from Imam. Maybe once you answer that one, then while you do that, I will get the screen set up for the panel.
Yeah, perfect. So Iman, so how do solo developers present their portfolios if they've done every part of their game, including music, character design, level design, and programming? It's a very good question, because obviously you want to showcase everything, because you have worked on all areas of that game. So I think that it's a case of almost breaking it down. So when you do have your portfolio and you've got the game on there, it's almost showing different aspects. So you could have a part of that portfolio that will focus on the character design and emphasizing how you do that. And then you could have an area that's focused on the programming aspect of it and how you've done that. So you're giving the reader an opportunity to see what you've done in each of those areas, rather than bundling it up to be like, this is my game and I've done everything. It's almost breaking them down into subcategories in order to showcase every single aspect of your skill set and how you've managed to do that. And again, you could start with what you feel you're strongest with, and then as you go through the portfolio, it goes backwards to what you're maybe not the most strong at. But I feel that it would be good for you to break that project up into sections to allow the reader to be able to see what you've done in each of those aspects rather than just I've done everything on that game. And then I think there's just one more that come through from Omar Raymond that I think is quite a good one there. So it's just a comment. So when I applied to companies with small teams, they were interested in having diverse skills and they wanted someone to fill multiple roles. Can be a challenge with smaller studios, where your role will maybe not be so defined. They may want you to do some design, they may want you to do some art. It can be quite difficult. Those very small startup mentality where it's kind of all hands on deck for all areas can be very difficult. I feel like something like that could be a good opportunity to gain some experience going into an environment like that. But long term, you would then have to sort of dissect that opportunity to find out the direction that you would want to move into. So I feel you could join a project like that, but be very aware that you are going to be doing a bit of everything. And then through that experience, try and find the direction that you want to move in and make it clear with the team that you're joining in. As the team gets bigger, this is what I want to focus on. So I don't mind doing a bit of this and a bit of that at the moment. But as the studio grows and the project becomes larger, I want to focus specifically on X, Y, or Z. I feel that would be the way that I would tackle a situation such as that.
All right, that's awesome. Okay, so Jumana, what do you think? We just keep going on here?
Yeah, we can, but I would like for us to take a break just for 10 minutes. And then we'll come back for the panel so people can stretch and then, come back refreshed. Also, I want to ask all of you guys to scan the QR code Nof. My colleague will be sending now in the chat. This is an attendance sheet, just so we can keep track, because you guys not everyone has their name written out the way their actual name is. So just so we can keep track. So 10 minutes, what time is it now? It's 8:03, so 8:15, we come back, okay?
Great, thank you so much. All right, we'll see you in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
John, are you sticking around for this part?
Yep, I think I'm moderating.
You're moderating?
Yes, yes.
Awesome, awesome.
You've got me till the end.
I love it.
No worries. I'm going to grab a coffee because it's 9 p.m. here, so I will see you in 10 minutes.
All right, sounds good.
No worries. Bye-bye.